Hi guys, welcome to our second month of lessons with Laura in the Happiness School. And this month she talked about agreements that we make with ourselves and the way our thoughts create our emotions, impact our actions, and then create our reality. And I wanted to dive in deep on one aspect of that in regards to chronic illness management. And the aspect I want to dive in deep on is the idea of shoulds and how they impact our ability to take care of ourselves and how they look as though they are the framework for self-care, but how they can be quite undermining. So the first thing I want to tell you about shoulds is that they're inherently binding. It doesn't mean that they are not the vessel that conveys information about how to take care of ourselves. It's just a more rigid encapsulation of self-care that's meant to be easy to absorb. So it's a really small way to look at how we manage our illness or how we manage our life if you're not looking at chronic illness. So the first thing to know is that shoulds inherently bind us. They take out other options and they tell us what we should be doing, right? And because, as Laura pointed out, we're not often checking our thoughts, we often accumulate a lot of shoulds without sort of discarding any of them. So our hand of shoulds gets really, really big and unruly. And often they are also conflicting with each other. So you could have just listen to these few. You've got, I should spend more time alone by myself. I should be spending more time by myself. And I should be socializing more. Or I should be more selfless. Or I should be more selfish. I should speak my mind. Or I should listen compassionately and always defer. You see how just these few conflict, and they probably resonate with you on some level. It's unlikely that you haven't thought one of those shoulds at one point in time in your life. The real issue with the shoulds is because they're conflicting, they're also battling. So there's this constant battle that's going on between one should and another should, and because you've got dozens upon dozens, they're fighting it out without ever having a clear winner. It's not like they battle it out and then you decide, no, it's really true for me that I should always be selfish, because sometimes it's true that you should, and sometimes it's true that you should be more selfless. There is not a clear winner, so instead there's this continual battle inside us. When you're looking at the shoulds of a chronic illness management, if you're looking at your self-care, this is really, it's exhausting either way. It is absolutely exhausting. And in my opinion, this is a huge part of fatigue for people, is the fact that we have a battle going on inside of us at all times. Now, imagine you're looking at the shoulds of taking care of yourself. So for me, I'm a diabetic. I should exercise, or I should take it easy, or I should eat more fat, or I should eat less fat. All of these things are battling back and forth. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And there is no clear winner. And worst of all, even if I were to jump through all of these sort of barbed hoops, like all these hoops we have to jump through, they're barbed. These shoulds are barbed, right? Even if I were able to jump through all of them, I still have my diabetes. It doesn't go away because I managed to check all of the boxes. It's still there. So if I can't win and I can't get rid of it, how do you imagine I feel? I feel exhausted. And that's sort of what is underlying chronic illness burnout, is this inability to get it right, this constant battle inside of us, and the inability to do it so well that it's done. We just pick it up again the next day. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about, that shoulds are binding, that they conflict with each other, that they're battling it out, and that they disregard the whole of you. The purpose of a should is sort of like our lizard brain. It keeps us alive, which is great, right? We want to be alive. But if you are alive while feeling this constant exhaustion and conflict, you're not really living, are you? It's such a narrow way to look at life, but it is also the way we do it by default. So many people do this by default. From the time we're little, growing up, we're given these parameters, these boxes that we should check, and it sort of zaps us of our essence. And that's one of the beauties of going through this coursework with Laura, is we start by sort of looking at our core essences. What is it inside of us that likes to burn the brightest, that lights us up? Shoulds disregard that. Their only job is to keep us alive, keep us out of danger. But if we're not living a life that lights us up, it's worth considering that we shouldn't give them so much credence. So the next thing I want to touch on is the amount of advice, the amount of shoulds that we have when we're dealing with chronic illness. So say you're diagnosed with, I'm going to go with diabetes because it's what I have. As you are diagnosed, you're given a list of shoulds. You should do this, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And by the way, they change decade to decade, so good luck with that. But you're given this list of shoulds, and then you join a forum or you talk to friends. Now, mind you, I was a little girl when this all happened, so I wasn't the one seeking out this information. It was just given to me. These boxes to check were just given to me. So this sort of chronic illness burnout can happen for parents and caretakers, absolutely. But the point being, the doctors give you a list, then you go out and you talk to other people, and they give you advice, which is often conflicting, right? Oh my gosh, I remember being told that I should eat more carbs and eat more grains, and my blood sugars were always wonky that way. And there's a lot of conflicting information about whether eating low carb, high fat is good for you or not good for you, and I don't believe that anybody should make that decision for you one way or the other. I abhor shoulds, and this is why I'm talking about it. So you get the advice from the doctor, then you get the advice from your friends, right? And then you have your own experience of life. How do I feel when I do this? How do I feel when I do this? But you're not going through and really addressing the other shoulds that you've heard and letting them go on their way. You're just sort of compiling more shoulds. And say you don't feel good. You go, oh, well, I should have been doing it the way that my doctor said, or I should have been trying this other thing that my friend suggested, or I should have been doing it the way that I knew I should do it. It's a no-win situation. And when you're already battling an illness, that's just a whole nother level of exhaustion you now have to deal with. This is why it's so exhausting to deal with a chronic illness. Not the illness in and of itself, which is also exhausting, but the constant thought battle in our head that we don't know how to address and we're not really taught how to address. So how do we address this? What we really need is a way to have some checks and balances in how we think about our self-care. And I think Laura hit the nail on the head when she acknowledged that our thoughts create our emotions, and our emotions create our actions. And our actions create results, or our reality, which then reiterate the original thought, right? So a thought that came up for me when I was doing my homework was, I am sloppy in my self-care. Now, it's not one, I automatically sort of bite those thoughts in the butt. But for this homework, I chose to sit with it because that was the thought that was coming up. I automatically didn't believe it because it felt bad, but that's because I've done a lot of work on listening to my shoulds and questioning them. But here's the thought. I am sloppy in my self-care, right? The emotion I have then is that I feel defeated, discouraged, disappointed, ashamed, right? And then what's my action? When I'm feeling those things, what is my action? I withdraw. I don't really want to try. I'm afraid I'm going to fail again. It all looks like an uphill battle, so I withdraw. If I withdraw from my self-care, the result is that my blood sugars are wonkier and I don't feel as good. And then not feeling so good leads right back to feeling like I am sloppy at my self-care. And it becomes this little cycle. So what I would suggest that we do is start by acknowledging the enormous list of shoulds that are going through our head. And that's one of the nice things about the homework we're doing this month, which is just like writing down the thoughts that come up that are unpleasant and questioning them. A lot of those are going to be shoulds, or at least they are for me. I should be doing this. I should be doing this. It's sort of like a little self-injury every time I have a should. It's unpleasant. and it has a very distinct feeling for me. For me, it feels like a heaviness just sort of like landed on me. Oh yeah, I'm not doing it right. It's so internally injuring. It's got a very distinct flavor for me. And that could be because I paid attention to it for a while, but you're going to want to listen to it. When a thought comes up, say you're writing down your homework and it's like, I should do this, look at how you feel. What are the emotions that come up for that? And sort of fine tune yourself so that when those come up in the future, you have the ability to stop and think about it. So the first thing you want to do is that you're recognizing, you're seeing a should. And then what you want to do after that is acknowledge the feeling that comes up with it and then question it. But question it as best you can with curiosity, not with accusation. Is this true? Is it absolutely true that I am sloppy in my self-care? Well, no, I guess it isn't 100% true. So you're looking there. You're looking to see if it's true or if it's not true. If it's really, really true, or could it possibly not be completely true? After that point, you have the option to dismiss it, to discard that one from your hand. I'm going to discard that one. It's not true anymore. Or maybe it wasn't ever true. For whatever reason, I'm done with that one. A lot of times when we're looking at our self-care, the shoulds that create the parameter of taking care of our illness are not ones that we can disregard completely. We can't really dismiss them, but we can reframe them. So that's the thing I'm going to add on here, is to consider reframing a should. So one way I did this, and I did this a couple of months ago when I was really fighting myself internally about the food that I was eating and how it was affecting me. And I kept going, I should be eating this way. I should be eating this way. And I felt heavy and disappointed in myself and like it was an uphill battle because I just felt like it wasn't something I could keep up with. And instead what I did, I turned it around and I said, I love how I feel when I eat this way. It feels so good when I feed myself these foods. And that little tweaking of it, that little reframing gave me this lift of just a little bit of pride. Like, I love it when I do it this way. I love it. And from that point of pride and love and imagining the enjoyment that I get out of that, and the enjoyment and the pride I get out of that little tweak in my lifestyle, I feel legitimately more inspired to do it than I did when I was telling myself I should. I don't like being told what to do. I imagine you don't like being told what to do. But if we can reframe it as a way of feeding ourselves, I love it. Feeding ourselves energetically. I love the way I feel when I treat myself this way. And leave it at that. You're much more likely to move in that direction. And it also acknowledges that it's a part of your being and not the entirety of your being. That's the problem with shoulds is that it's very narrow-minded, and it acts as if that is the only thing you should be paying attention to, right? Not the wholeness of who you are, not the essence of who you are, not what your aspirations are and your self-expression and your family and your work. Like, none of that gets acknowledged in these narrow shoulds. But in this broader sense of, I love how I feel when I treat myself this way. It's a much more holistic way to approach how we take care of ourselves and how we live our lives. So the foundation of this is that shoulds will keep us alive, although often they're conflicting, so it's not necessarily. Shoulds are meant to keep us alive, just like our lizard brain is. But we want to be living a full life that acknowledges our priorities. If staying alive, if mastering your illness were top priority for you, it wouldn't be a struggle. It would be something you would be doing. But it isn't, right? It isn't innate. It's something that came on later that we are trying to live with and trying to live a full life with. And that isn't an easy thing. And it does take this constant checking in with ourselves. And if I could give you anything, it would be the ability to listen to yourselves and how you manage your being, with compassion and with understanding that there is no one way and that you are evolving and so is your illness, right? It has to be something we're fluid with, and the goal is to be addressing it with continual curiosity and compassion. Curiosity will carry you through all the changes that are going to happen in your life, and they might be really frequent. They might be every 10 years or so, but curiosity will keep you from being stuck and keep you from not seeing the best route for yourself. And it will also be the piece that allows you to discard all of these extra shoulds that don't need to be there. So when I was talking about shoulds being like a hoop you have to jump through with barbs, compassion and curiosity heals us and removes the barbs from the shoulds. Oh yes, I see that I have this thought that I should be better at my self-management of my diabetes. I see that. I can use compassion and curiosity and question it, reframe it, and it becomes perhaps a hoop that I jump through, but not one that injures me in the process. Or if it's one that no longer fits you, you can discard it. This isn't true for me anymore. This is not the best way for me to manage my diabetes. This one should doesn't apply to me anymore. I can put it down. I can send it on its way. But unless we stop to question the thoughts that we're having, we don't know if they're serving us or not. And we don't know which ones need to be reframed and which ones need to be discarded. I hope that helps you. I hope you got something out of that. This is a continual process for me, so I'm glad to be sharing with you. It's a really good exercise for me to really dive in deep, not only in my own process, but to connect with the humanity of dealing with a chronic illness with compassion and curiosity.